so you have to move. And you've contacted a few moving companies, they've each come out, they've given you a bid, and now you realize that each moving company has a different price, some different by quite a bit. Why? You've showed them each the same things to move, so why are the prices so different in different bids? Shouldn't they be similar? If you've ever asked this question, we've got you covered. Let's review the 4 most common reasons that moving companies are going to have prices that differ from one another. Number 1, different inventories. You might be surprised to know that moving companies don't always record the same items in their inventory. After all, they are human beings, and sometimes they make mistakes, or sometimes it's a scam, but they've walked through your home, and they may have done a virtual walkthrough, but either way, it doesn't mean that they wrote down the same list of items to be moved one to another. If you remember from our other articles, the inventory is usually the basis for how moving companies calculate a price. That means if companies are using different inventories for your home because one company missed something or many things, then you're going to get a lower price on your bid. Still, it won't be that low when you actually move. So how do you fix this? If companies have different inventories, ask them to revise to what you feel is the best representation of your belongings before you compare prices. Number 2, hourly prices and crew size. If a company is quoting you hourly, they've probably given you an estimate on how many hours they think it will take. However, since this is an educated guess, the exactness depends on the experience of the company. The more experience, typically the closer the estimate. Some companies might think it takes 4 crew and 1 truck for 8 hours to move your home. Some might look at the same move and say, I think that's 6 crew and 2 trucks for 6 hours. But these will lead to very different prices. Here's a tip. Don't get caught up on the actual hourly price differences. Think about this. If one company charges you $5 an hour more than another, on a 10-hour move, that's only a difference of $50. If the company treats you and your belongings better, most people find it's worth it. Now, if there are big differences in hourly rates, consider asking yourself why, because you typically get what you pay for. On top of that, different moving crews won't always move at the same pace. One company might give you a crew that can get the job done in 4 hours, while another moving company has a less experienced team that takes them 6 hours. Now, these kind of factors can lead to the same move costing you very different amounts, company to company. So how do you fix this? Ask the most experienced moving company why they chose the number of crew, trucks, and hours that they did for your move. Why did they do that? What would it look like if they reduced the crew size or increased it? Would it change the price? Talk to them about what other companies chose to use. Ask them to respond. After that discussion, you can use that information to talk to some of the other companies and ask them the same thing. In the end, we recommend you choose a company that gives you the most honest, forthcoming, and experienced answers to those questions. Number 3, hidden charges. If this one sounds a little devious, it's because unfortunately it is. Some moving companies will quote you without revealing charges that they will tack on later, and it typically takes a few variations, like this. A company will quote you so many hours, but it's really going to be quite a bit higher. For example, if your home realistically takes 10 hours to move, the company might say that they can do it in 5, but they know they can't do it in 5 hours. This means they're going to give you a low quote, assuming you won't know the difference. But once you've booked, they will charge you on actual time, which you won't know until after the move when you're stuck. Here's another variation. The company doesn't show you material charges like boxes or equipment on the estimate. Now they bring it on the day of your move, and they use it, and then they bill you for it later. And yet another version. Moving companies might be hiding that they aren't offering you any protection for belongings on your move because it's an extra charge. Protection for your move is called valuation, and it's the most important topic you should consider when moving. So if a company isn't offering it, you need to know why. You might pay a lower price on the day of the move, but if something breaks, you aren't protected, and you'll have to replace items on your own. How do you fix this? Scrutinize your estimates. Find any significant differences in charges that appear on one bid, but not on others. It's typically more important to know why something isn't appearing on another estimate. Now, it's also important to know that the most reputable moving companies wouldn't ever want to scam a customer. Now, that doesn't mean everyone's like that, though, and it is worth comparing estimates for that reason. Number 4, binding versus non-binding estimates. Now this one is sort of a fine print difference. A binding estimate is when the moving company won't change the price as long as the move's inventory or scope doesn't change. Now that will be true even if the weight or time is different than what they estimated. Doesn't that sound nice? It helps customers budget for the move because as long as the scope or the list of items moved doesn't change, you know your price up front. However, this does present some risks to the moving company because they'll have the higher costs if the weight or time changes from what they've estimated. Now they don't really know your items, and they'll be paying for the cost of the trucks and the crew. If something runs over, the company eats the difference. Because they promised you a binding price, you won't get charged more. But moving companies will charge more for a binding estimate than a non-binding one, just to help cover those risks. Now, it might be tempting to always go to a non-binding estimate with a lower cost, but before you do, remember that you will pay for the actual time or weight of your move. So suppose you're confident that you know what the time or weight will be. In that case, you can save some money going for a non-binding estimate. Still, it probably won't surprise you to know that most people opt for a binding estimate to avoid that risk. So how do you fix this discrepancy? What can happen is that one company can give you one type of bid and another can give you a different type. So suppose one company is giving you a binding estimate while another is giving you a non-binding estimate. In that case, they aren't valid comparisons. So ask the companies to revise their estimates to the type that you prefer. Now, the best way to understand differences in move quotes is to ask questions on anything that looks different or out of place. We recommend that you have each moving company review their bid with you. Go line by line instead of just emailing it over, because this detailed review helps you understand why they price the way they do and allows you to make revisions that may save you money. In the end, we recommend that you choose the moving company that you trust gave you the most honest and forthcoming answers to your questions. Moving is complicated, and it's best to have the most trustworthy and experienced people doing the job. That might cost a little more than the cheapest option, but remember the adage, you get what you pay for.